Welcome back to the channel. My name is Quinn with Grace Harbor Church, and as we're going through the book of Job, so far we've seen where Job was a prosperous man and he was doing real well, and then Satan asked God, hey, would he really be this way if he didn't have all these things you blessed him with? So, God said, go ahead, try. And so with his permission, Satan took those things and he still praised God, even though everybody else looked on in astonishment. And then God praises Job. It's like, isn't he doing good? And God says, well, or Satan says, well, it's the health. If I took that, and so God says, go ahead. And Satan took that, and again, everybody just couldn't believe what they were seeing, including Job's own wife, who, told him to curse God and die. And then Job's three friends, who they get a lot of flack. They sat with him 7 days and 7 nights, none of them saying a word, before Job opened his mouth and began to talk about his sorrow and his complaint. Whenever then the men, relying on their own understanding of their wisdom and their understanding of God, began to try to fix this thing. And anybody who has friends with any number of guys knows that we want to fix things. That's in our nature. So, were they the best of friends? Maybe not. But they sat with him 7 days and 7 nights without saying a word, just to be there for him. I don't know many people who could claim to only be acquaintances that would do that. So in some way, I think Job's friends were true friends. Now, did they understand the things of God deeply? Maybe not. Did their own wisdom measure up to God's wisdom? Definitely not. But in today's reading, we have Job 29 through 31, where it starts off with Job basically saying, I wish for the old days. I wish for whenever I was, prosperous and I had my children and people would listen to me instead of calling me all sorts of things or saying that I'm an unrighteous man. I wish for the old days before, he pretty much continues to say, only God knows my heart and my integrity, but I haven't sinned against God. And I think in some ways it's beautiful that he's done that, because he is able to say that he's upheld God's ways. In some ways, I think it's a little bit boastful, and that's just me personally, because all come short and fall. All fall and come short of the glory of God, and none are righteous, no, not one. So Job may be a very, very, very good man, but claiming blamelessness, I think, is something that isn't attainable to anyone in this life. However, I will point out one of the reasons I chose this passage is because it contains the word covenant. Job 31:1, I have made a covenant with my eyes, how then should I gaze at a virgin? And so even though we see all throughout Scripture God utilizing covenants, Job made a covenant to himself not to do something, which is very honorable, very good. And he goes on to talk about what he will and won't do. And that is why God was so willing to let Satan try his tricks with him, is because Job was a very good man. He upheld things. He provided for people. He loved people, and he loved his children enough to sacrifice for them each and every day, just in case something might go wrong. He walked in what was right, but even when he was low, he wished for the old days, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, Job, throughout this account, even if he does wish for the old days, he does trust God, and he over and over states that only God knows his heart, and he praises God even in these bad times, even when his friends, with their wisdom and their understanding of God, because his friends don't not know God, they just don't seem to understand him. And so Job just wishing for the old days, and don't we all sometimes? He talks about, when he wishes to be a child in some ways. Again, he wishes for those old days, but the old is gone, and he has to live with the now, and including his friends, which I don't think he appreciates at the moment how much they've been there for him, but how easily we don't appreciate something whenever they seem to be against us. And in some ways, his friends are against him a little bit, but they're trying to help. But at the end of the day, Job praises God, and that should be our response too.